All right, I'm in my Star Wars era today. I don't know why, it just felt like the right kind of day to wear it. Hi, readers, it's Lori. Welcome back to my channel, Books, Ink, and Paper, or welcome if this is your first time. Today, though, it is almost the start of a new year. Crazy, right? The time just flew by. I'm still off work, so I'm going to be filming some content this week to get ahead, hopefully. I did not get ahead last week just because a lot of things were happening. And I am fighting off a little bit of a cold, but I'm fighting it off well. That's my Princess Leia warrior taking care of myself situation, I guess, is what prompted that. But we are going to talk about some releases for January, and I'm super excited about each of these. Of course, I always say that, but I really am. And there's a mix of different things. I know a lot of people have chosen a lot of the same ones that I have chosen, but I think some of these are unique. They're all fiction, I think, this time. If I remember right, I did this a few days ago. I did the research, and I'm really super happy with this. And one of them I already own. So let's get started on that. So the first one is released on January 1st, The Water Lies by Amy Meyerson. This was an Amazon first choice pick for subscribers to Prime. So they give you a list each month. I know I've mentioned this before, and this month I chose this one because it seemed like something I could really get into. It is a bit of a mystery thriller. Of course it is. But this is about two women, and one woman has a toddler, and she's out with the child, I think walking her in a stroller or something like that. And somebody else starts to shout, Gigi, at this woman with this child. And the mom's name is Tessa. Then the woman who yelled Gigi is found drowned and killed. And so now this daughter's death devastates the woman who called her Gigi. And so she and Tessa team up to try to find out what happened to that woman and why she would have called out and cried out Gigi to Tessa's child. It sounds really like a plot I could get into. It does seem tragic. Obviously, it's difficult to think about and incredibly hard to think about the scenarios that could be streaming around this, but I'm up for the challenge and I would like to get to it soon. The next one is Meet the Newmans by Jennifer Nixon, and this is about America's favorite family. This is a show that reminds me of my childhood, watching shows like Leave It to Beaver. If you're of a certain age, you know exactly what I mean. But this family, Dal and Dinah, have had this show for a long time. It's been very successful, and they have two sons, Shep and Guy. This is being billed as a good pick for fans of lessons in chemistry or for the Evelyn Hugo novel by Taylor Jenkins Reid. The father has a lot of secrets, or at least one specific secret, and Dinah has some numbness, which I think they said was a literal numbness in her body. So when I remember, this was a few days ago, I remember thinking that it wasn't like she was just numb to life. So they're struggling with that. The boys are, I think, teenagers, so they're a little bit rowdy and doing some things they're not crazy about, and they're evolving through these episodes of this family saga that have been going on for a long time. And their ratings are kind of plummeting because you can only do these shows for a specific period of time, right? Dal gets into an accident, a very mysterious accident. And so I'm not sure if he survives the accident or not, but Dinah then has to write the last episode for this show. So this one is dubbed as somewhat funny, lighthearted, but also a family drama, a bit of a, I would say, darkness to it and secrets and those kinds of things, lies perhaps, never easy. I really do think that this one will be a book that ends up being read by me. When, I don't know, but I really like this, and I think it'll be successful. It has a 4.07 rating at the moment, but there aren't a lot of people who have read and rated it yet, so we'll see how that progresses. This one is really dark, but it's also about boys, interestingly. So we have two books that are kind of talking about sons. So this one is called What Boys Learn, and it's by Andromeda Romano Lax. I have never read anything by this author, but this one caught my eye because of the premise and because it's set in Chicago. So you know I can't say no to a book that's set in Chicago. But in this particular novel, two teen girls are found dead, and the mother of the boy, Abby, sorry, is her name. She's a high school counselor, and she worries that her son might somehow have been involved in the death of these girls because her older brother was involved in something similar when she was growing up, and she's afraid that genetically that her son may be inheriting or have inherited some of her brother's traits, and some of his actions may be repeated. There is a lot of talk about this and about genetic, things that happen in this way, and it's always fascinated me. So I think this one will be good. A lot of people are talking about it. It currently has a 3.57, but also not a lot of ratings. But as long as it's over 3.5, I'm all in. And a lot of the people that I know from Goodreads or BookTube have gotten an arc of this one and have read it, and they've enjoyed it a lot. So I think that this one too may be one that stays on my TBR list. It's dark, but it goes through the process of how children are raised, how they're taught, and is it their chemistry, is it their DNA, or is it the way that they've been supported by their family? This is an age-long question, probably, and one that's very complicated. So, I like a story that's fairly complicated, but I hope it resolves itself in a way that brings sort of closure to the reader, but we shall see. This one is really nuts. The cover is very interesting, and this one, the premise is really nuts. So this is called Lost Lambs by Madeline Cash, a new author to me. Family dysfunction, open marriage, which is not something I particularly am fond of. The main characters are Catherine and Bud, and they have three daughters. All right, so Abigail is dating a man who's called War Crime Wes. That's his name. Her daughter Louise is secretly writing to a terrorist who I think has been imprisoned. And her youngest, Harper, is sent to a reform camp to try to manage her behaviors, and whatever those are, I don't know. So this is a family saga. Harper is obsessed with a mysterious shipping container. And when this happens, this somehow ties them all together. And I don't know how or why, because it's a weird premise, a mysterious shipping container, but we can only read to discover why. I am going to be watching the ratings on this, but it's also already at a 4.22. So it says it's funny and warm and weird, I would say, if I had to describe it by the synopsis. But again, this one comes out on the 13th of January. So this one is a queer life story, a bit of coming of age, and it just kind of grabbed me as well. Also 13 January, Is This a Cry for Help by Emily R. Austin. Haven't heard of this author either, but the main character in this is Danny. Is that my writing? It's terrible, you guys. Danny, I think. Dany. Danny is a librarian, and she has a wife named Joy who runs a bookbinding service, or that's her business anyway. So she takes care of bookbinding, and Danny takes care of book lending. And Danny has a nice house on the lake. They have a cat. A lot of women have a cat, so it's a little bit stereotypical, but a lot of just happiness should be abounding. But Danny has a breakdown because her ex, Ben, dies suddenly, I think. And so she's just really struggling. And they are immersed with tons of books all around them all the time, having to think about books, having to deal with books all the time. So she returns back to work because she needs to get over this breakdown and to, to be productive and to re-engage in her career. And when she returns to back to the library, she's noticing that there's book banning that's happening, furiously around them. There's a DEI crisis that's happening in the nation. So this one might not be for everybody at this particular time. You may be feeling one way about these things or another, which is fine. But also, we don't always want to be bombarded with it, no matter what way we feel about these things, right? So that's just a sort of a warning to be sensitive to your own needs. And there's a lot of unrest that's coming into this community. And so this one is about truth, importance of books, and about the lives of queer people who sometimes are, at risk, or they feel like they're at risk in different situations in different places where they live. So I think that this would be good, but I also think that it might be really hard. There's a theme here, right? Definitely. There's a theme here. So that one currently has a 4.26 rating, and a lot of people are talking about it as well. Okay, the next one, I'm going to butcher the name of this, but I'm going to try really hard not to. There is no clear pronunciation guide to this word currently that I can find, but we're going to give it a go. This is called a midnight pastry shop called Walding. Walding by Lee Onum. This is a Korean novel translated to the English, I think. Perhaps Lee Onum wrote it in English, I'm not sure. And this one is being comped to the Midnight Library, so there's been a lot of comps that are very ethereal and interesting. So this is a magical realism kind of novel, and it is billed as being uplifting, so we could all use that now, right, after some of these books. This is about a woman whose grandmother passes away, and she leaves her this pastry shop. And the conditions of the pastry shop are that she has to keep it open for at least 1 month, and that she has to open it only from 10 p.m. to midnight. Yes. So, of course, this is a little odd. Her grandmother was a beautiful pastry maker, and she had this successful place for a long time. What I have written down in the research that I did is that Walding means a flower moon temple. And there are also people that will come in from 10 to midnight who are spirits transitioning into their next life. And so this whole midnight pastry shop is dedicated to helping them to transition and to help them with their memories as they prepare to release them, I think. Yes, this one sounds good, complicated, possibly lighthearted, possibly a little sad, but I don't know. And the other thing about this is that she has a black cat. And she just supports people to have full closure, I think, as they pass and as they return. Again, if it's not your jam because that's not something you believe in, then this would not be your book. I like the premise of this one, and I like the creativity that this author has added to this novel. It also has a 3.77 rating so far. And so that one is over 3.5, which usually means to me that it's something that I would enjoy. And I have been reading a lot of books set in Japan, Korea, different places like that. This one is set in Korea. And so yeah, we may give it a go if it's easy to find. And I want to see what happens with this a little bit too, just to see what people are thinking and saying about it. The next one is Detour, which is the first in the series called Detour by Jeff Rake and Rob Hart. This one had me because it's about a space shuttle, a space travel experience. So, I was like, very weird though. It's being billed for fans of The Twilight Zone or Manifest, which were both television shows, and I've watched both of them and really enjoyed both of them very, very much. If you haven't watched Twilight Zones, they're still in circulation everywhere, but Manifest was a series that I think has ended. If it hasn't, I didn't watch the end of it, but It was very challenging, and I also found it to be very riveting. So it's about being displaced from something that happened, or knowing that something happened, but nobody else thinks it happened, that sort of thing. So this one is about a space shuttle and a guy who saved a police officer. His name is Ryan. Because he saves a police officer, he's invited to go on this shuttle to the moon of Saturn, which that moon is Titan. Nobody's ever gone there before, I'm sure. It's not something we talk about a whole lot, but they go on this journey into space, and he decides to do it because they will pay him well for doing it as a civilian, and also because he has a disabled son, and he'd like to use that money to be able to support his son's medical bills. All makes sense, right? Until they return back to Earth, and nothing is the same when they return. It says there are mysterious figures that are talking to them. Everything is has changed, and I don't know if they find their families or not. I hope so, because obviously he has a disabled son. But it sounds like it might be fantastic. It has a 3.82, and again, it comes out on January 13th, if I didn't say that already. Yeah, I know. I think this would be a must. But again, I'm going to really lean into my library this year, because there's 11 of these, and I don't need 11 more books right now. January 20th, My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney comes out. I'm not sure about this one, although I have enjoyed a lot of Alice Feeney's novels. This one might be a little too weird for me. I don't know, but we shall see. This is about a woman who's an artist named Eden, and Eden sets off for a run one day, and she returns back home and puts the key into her front door, and it won't work. So Eden then is a little bit panicked to find out that there's a woman that lives in her home, and this is married, and she's married to her husband, and she doesn't have any clue of how this happened. Then there's a woman who's a London, I think it's a woman who's a Londoner named Birdie. And Birdie has a life-changing diagnosis and discovers a clinic named Spyglass. And Spyglass, I guess, can predict the date of your death. So I'm assuming she would like to know this so that she can figure out what to do with the rest of her life. I'm not sure, but this is mind-bending, it says. It's a novel about obsession. It's a novel about craziness things. I don't know. And I'm not sure what happens after you step into Spyglass either, but this one sounds very complex, but it's called My Husband's Wife. So I don't know where Birdie comes into this at all. Maybe Birdie is the husband's wife. I don't know. It has a 4.34 rating so far. So I would say that a lot of people are enjoying it. I'm going to give it a shot, I'm sure, because I do think I have read Alice Feeney almost to zero. I think I have his and hers left, maybe. There might be one more, but January 20th, A Box Full of Darkness by Simone St. James, whom I also love as an author and have a lot of her novels that I have read on my shelves and a few that I haven't. Simone St. James is fairly well known and has written a lot of really unique, I would say, novels about mysteries and death and ghostly stuff. Paranormal. This one is no exception. This is a book that is set in the same place as The Sundown Motel, which was one of my favorites. I mean, it wasn't a 5-star read for me, I think, but I did like it. I think it was a 4 for me. It was very intriguing, and the setting of that one was a pretty prominent feature of that book, a character maybe of its own. So this is about two siblings who have left their home 18 years ago, and their brother, who is a ghost, has called them to return back to this home and to discover what's happening in their hometown. So Violet, one of the sisters, sees dead people. So I guess she's able to see Ben, their brother, and Ben is trying to lead them to figure out what's happening, to answers about what's happening in this particular area. And it sounds a lot like Simone St. James. You know, she kind of dallies and dabbles into that space. It's usually well written and creepy. So I've read a lot of hers that are not as creepy and some that are more creepy. And as I remember, and it's been a while, Sundown Motel was pretty creepy. I would say the one I read most recently was Murder Road. I think that one was a little bit. I like them. They're entertaining and they usually keep my attention. So that one also currently has a 3.94 rating on Goodreads. I like books around siblings. There's a lot of that going on here too. There's a theme. There's always a theme. January 20th is also the day that Room 706 will release, and this is by Ellie Leverson. I have never heard of this author. And this one is so Kate wanted to be married and have her children, and she's really loving her life as a married woman and loving the things that she gets to do, except that it's also a little insane because she has a number of children and whatnot. So every few months she goes to London and she sleeps with a man in a hotel. And she sees, nothing wrong with this. Again, this might not be for a lot of you. This is not a Krista book from Books and Jams for sure. But she goes into this hotel frequently to do this. And then one day, while she's in the hotel having a relationship with this person that she has carried on with, the hotel is under siege and police are coming in and she will likely be discovered in some way. So this sounds pretty propulsively creepy, scary in a different way, right? And I just can't imagine this, but I'm sure that it's happened to more people than I would think. This one has a 3.77 rating currently, and well, I don't know. I don't know. I think I would want to read that one at some point. Probably wouldn't buy it, but. And the last one is The Unwritten Rules of Magic by Harper Ross. This is her debut novel, and this one comes out on January 27th. And you're going to know why I chose this one in just a second. So this one it's magical realism. So it blends magic and memory. Okay. A novel of love and perfection and grief. So this woman, whose name is Emerson, has been raised by an absent father and a mother who probably drank too much, so did not have a great family life. Also a trend here in these books that I'm presenting to you. Sorry. But what happens is her father is diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and because her mother drinks a lot and they're probably of a certain age, she has to, I think, kind of intervene and come in and take care of them both. So she does. She's been a ghostwriter for a long time, and so while she's there, she remembers that her father had this typewriter that he used, and she decides to just take it down and try to play with it, maybe start to write something that she's, wanting to write there. But she starts by typing in a sentence that is a bit of a wish that she would like to have in her life, and probably one that she's not thinking would come true. And it does. So then she does it again, and another wish comes true. And then she discovers that there's a cost to this process. So what she receives, I think she has to also lose something. I'm not sure what the cost is. But then her daughter has something that really is scary happening to her. And so she has to decide if she should use it again. Sounds pretty interesting, right? 3.74 currently. People who have rated it, I looked to see, have been really surprised that this was a debut novel for this author and that, that it was so good. So that is the end of my list. 11 really interesting books, a lot of correlation, a lot of things. I will say that the list of books coming out in January of 2026 is incredibly long. and large. I don't think I've ever read through as many potential new releases to bring to you as I did this time. I really did enjoy going through a lot of these. A lot of the rom-coms I didn't bring forward today. There are a ton of them though, if you like them. None of them just really kind of hit my anticipated heart. But you know, there's just a good selection. So if you're trying to do a no buy January or a low buy year or whatever that might be, check out your library because that might be the way to go in this. I will definitely be doing that. It may take a while for some of these to hit some of our libraries depending on where you live, but you know, I think that this is a valuable list of possibilities for me, and I hope it is for you too. So let me know which ones of these kind of hit you in a certain way. Which ones are you definitely knowing that you would not read no matter what the conditions would be, and just kind of what you're anticipating, because you probably have seen a number of other books that are coming out in January that I have not. So I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and if you'd like to stick around, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you. There's some wonderful people here. I say that all the time, but it's very, very true. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your support, and as always, happy reading. Bye.